You're holding 28B of Ches on the base. We're up to Masav Ravesha. Question. Hashem, that we're able to learn Torah every day. It's less of our learning we should have some English. We learned before Machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Actually, two Machlekes in Rav and Shmuel. One Machlekes was a simple Machlekes that if someone has an obstacle in the public property, that's considered a bar, according to Shmuel. Bar b'shus Rabbim, even though it's like his backpack or something. But Rav says no, that's not considered a bar. That's considered his shar, because he owns it. Bar is only when you don't own it, according to Rav. Another point that we said was that Rav said that the pit only is only chayev for the air that's there. You only chayev. Why are you chayev for damage that the pit causes? Because of the air that the hot air that you created in that hole. But the impact, Rav says you'd be exempt for. Anyway, those were two machlekes that we mentioned over here. Masav Rav Aishia has a question. This is Rav Aishia. Yes, like Reb Chia and Rav Aishia. He's like a student of Rebbe, early sage. V'nafal shama sharei chamar, quoting a brisa. Brisa says, quotes the brisa quotes the pasuk. It says if a ox or a donkey falls into the pit, then he has to pay for it. So the brisa explains, shar v'lei adam chamar v'lei kelim. He only has to pay for the ox, but he doesn't have to pay for the vessels that break inside the pit. He only has to pay for the donkey. He doesn't have to pay for the load. I'm sorry, shar v'lei adam, the ox, but not the person that falls into the pit and dies, we said. And the donkey and not the vessels that fall into the pit. Mikan amru, from here they explain, they said, nafal l'seicha shar v'keleb, if an ox and its tools that come along with it, what is it? Utensils that come along with it. It would mean the things that are attached to the ox, the yoke and that type of stuff. V'nishtabru, and they broke as they fell in. Chamar v'kelev, or a donkey and its utensils. Now its utensils would be the things that hold the load on or whatever. Each one does different jobs, an ox and a donkey. V'niskaru, and they tore. You have a different term for the breaking of the vessels of an ox to the tearing of the vessels of the donkey, the utensils of the donkey, because one is just like straps. On the donkey would be straps that would tear. On the ox it would be the yoke that would break. So the halacha is chayav ala behema pater ala kelim. He is only responsible, the guy that dug the pit, only responsible for the animals. He does not responsible to pay for those utensils. Special exemption that we have because of the wording of the pasuk. What you're responsible for in a pit, it exempts him from the vessels. Broken vessel, he doesn't have to pay for. Yeah, one of those. There was this DVD of a court case in Besdin. It was like mock trials, but they had like Rabbanim and the people came in. Anyway, one of them was Reb Naftali. Did you ever see that? To find it. And
no, I haven't seen it.
You did see it?
No, I haven't.
I have to find it, and then I used to show it to my class, but I'd have to pause like every few minutes to explain. Oh, this is a Gemara here, that's a Gemara here, and like it's. But whatever the case is, in there, this guy slips by a pool, and the computer falls into the pool. So he's complaining about that he broke his foot, and there was water around the pool. There was water around the pool, so he's suing the pool site, the owner of. They didn't keep it clean. There was water, and he said, well, it's always water, not cold. He said, no, there was more. It was like muddy water, so it was more slippery. I said, oh, okay, that could be a different story, but he doesn't have to pay for the computer. That would be kalim in a bar. Doesn't have to pay for that.
So who pays for that?
It's just a loss. It's like if a guy, look, if a guy trips in his house, if a guy trips in the forest, there's who pays if the city streets aren't straight. But theoretically, you can sue the city, but no one will ever win. So everyone drops that.
It's like indirect, like laws, or is it because it's like a sub category that we have before someone gets penalty for
And it's not because of indirect. It's not because of indirect, and it's not because you get a penalty for the large one. It's simply there is no large one here. Let's say it's just a computer. It's just a glass vase that fell into a pit when the person tripped and fell into the pit. Let's say the person's fine, whatever. So he's exempt from the. That's based on the verses. The pasuk says. No, but let's say there is no donkey. Yeah, let's say there is no donkey. It's not because of like a kamle b'deramine that there's a larger price. It's not. It's just simply the Torah says that he's exempt. I don't know the logic for it. So
is it not sure?
Sure, but
Yeah, I'm saying, but in that case, but what happens if there is no shore? So then maybe yes.
No. It doesn't. That's.
In other words, it has to be a shore.
It needs to be a shore. It needs to be a shore.
That's what I'm saying. So it has to be a shore, and therefore the kelim are not. But if there was no shore,
no.
If the shore just tilted,
no. The problem with
slipped, and the kelim
fell in. I know that could happen, and you'd be pater on the kelim even though the shore didn't fall in. What's happening is the pasuk adds in extra unnecessary details. Those unnecessary details didn't have to give me those examples. Shor or chamar didn't have to tell me anything. Then it could have just said then something broke or so whatever something. So then you'd be chayav. The fact that it gives me those details tells me that it's only those details that are chayav.
And how did they get that it's shore?
Oh,
maybe it's shore below kelim.
I think the way it works is that's a good question. I think the way it works is that usually there's a man walking with his ox. And usually there's a chamar that's walking with its load. So it says, oh, you're being so specific over here, you're probably excluding what would be the accompanying. That's what I think. Okay, I'm sorry, Rav Naftali.
I'm just going to say the logic, and it's the same logic that's used in secular law, is you have to protect against risks that are reasonably foreseeable. You can foresee that there are animals in this Reshus Harabim, and maybe you should clean up what you spilled or whatever.
Yeah.
But who's to foresee what that animal is carrying and how valuable it is? That's the logic.
Okay. That's interesting. Here. Like the hidden stuff. Could be. Pater ala kelim. The Gemara says, what is this similar to? It's similar to someone that puts a stone, a knife, or a load inside the Reshus Harabim, and it causes damage. So the Gemara is a little surprised over here at this analogy. The Gemara is surprised because the Gemara thinks that you don't say that what it says in the Torah is comparable to something that's derived from the Torah. You know what this is comparable to? Comparable to a tolda of a bar. It says Adarabba, the Gemara says, what else is comparable to this? You only compare something. You have the basic rule, and then you compare other things to the basic rule. The basic rule is someone dug a pit. What do you want to compare to that? Then we'll say it's a load or a knife that's sitting on the floor. Ella, my daimel is that. So what is similar to this? What's similar to the pit? That's what it says in the Torah. It says a knife, a stone and a knife or a load that was put into Rosh Hashanah that caused damage. Lefikach, the Brisa continues. If his glass jug or glass something bangs against the stone, the owner of the stone is going to have to pay for it. Now, what just happened here was that someone has his backpack or his load that's put into Rosh Hashanah, and we said that he's exempt for Kalim. Who owns the backpack? So the guy owns it. According to Shmuel, that's a bar. According to Rav, that's a shar. The whole exemption of Kalim is only in a bar. So Reisha Kasha Rav, it's a Kasha and Rav. Rav says that if you own it, then it's considered a shar. It's considered your money that caused damage, not your pit that caused damage. Your pit is only if you don't own it. Now, the exemption of the pit, which is Kalim, shouldn't apply if you own the backpack. So, Seifa Kasha Shmuel. Now, the end of it is a Kasha and Shmuel, because the end of it says that if you have that rock in the Rosh Hashanah and a glass breaks on it, it says Chayev. According to Shmuel, Kalim in a bar is Pater. According to Rav, we'd say it's a shar, so Kalim is Chayev. But according to Shmuel, it should be Pater. So why do you say Chayev? So the beginning of the Brisa is a Kasha and Rav. The end of the Brisa is a Kasha and Shmuel. Beginning of the Brisa says Kalim or Pater. The end of the Brisa says Kalim or Chayev. So the Gemara says, why are you asking us as a Kasha on Rav and a Kasha on Shmuel? Why don't you say that the Brisa is self-contradictory? Which automatically, that's what comes out. Why you have a problem with the Brisa? It's not a problem with Rav and Shmuel. You have a bigger problem. Reisha Pater Seifa Chayev. The Brisa contradicts itself. Each Rav and Shmuel will each answer the Brisa according to the way that fits best with their opinions. It goes like this. Rav would explain the Brisa. When do we say that you're exempt from Kalim, as we see in the beginning of the Brisa and the Reisha of the Brisa? That's Kashef Giran. That's because he made it ownerless. Why did he make his rock ownerless? I don't know. He didn't need it anymore. Why did he make his backpack ownerless? He said it was waste. It was taking out his garbage or something. That's he doesn't need it. But if he doesn't make it ownerless, then Chayev, he would be responsible. And the Brisa continues to the Seifa. If he brings his glass jug against the stone, the owner of the stone would have to pay because he didn't make it ownerless. It's not considered a bar. It's considered a shar.
Hidden secondary part of the ratio.
Yeah. So Bamed Dvarim Amurim, that wasn't clear in the ratio. Shmuel will answer it differently. He'll explain like this. Now that we've just said that what's similar to a bar, what's similar to a pit, a knife, a rock, a knife, and a load that are put into the Rosh Hashanah. So the Rabbi Yehuda, the Mechayev on this Kekelim Babar, there is an opinion, a lone opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. He holds that Yechayev on Kalim in a bar, that a person has to pay for utensils that break in a pit. Everyone else says no. What does he do with Chamar? With the word Chamar. The Gemara later on says Kasha. We don't know what he does with it. But anyway, he holds that Yechayev on Kalim Babar. So the Brisa continues, Lefikach, according to that opinion, so we added in the dissenting opinion into the Brisa, which we didn't see it. And then when we conclude the Brisa, we're following that opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. That's the way Shmuel would explain the Brisa, that it's not the majority opinion, it's that lone opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rabbi Lazar says, this is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas, the Amira, says, Leishanu Ella, this was only taught, Shiniskal Be'efin Menashav Be'efin. If someone trips on the stone and he bangs against the stone, it must be like a large boulder that he trips at the beginning of it and falls at it, and that's when he gets hurt or breaks whatever. That's what we're discussing here. Right. Aval Niskal Bekarka Menashav Be'efin. Let's say he happened to trip on the regular floor, tripped over his own feet, and he fell. When he fell, he hit the stone. It's Pater. He'd be exempt. Says, come on, who would that go like? the like Reb Nassan, it won't follow the opinion of Reb Nassan. Now we had the opinion of Reb Nassan before, where one ox gores another ox, and he gores him into a pit. So Reb Nassan held that because the goring ox is only going to pay half price, so the owner of the pit pays the rest of it. That was Reb Nassan's view, and the Rabbanan said that you don't say that. He said it was the goring ox that did the damage over here. It knocked him. The pit wouldn't have caused damage without the goring ox. So you don't collect the rest of it from the pit. We discussed this, that if there's two partners that are involved in something, can you go to the richer one to get your payment back? So according to Reb Nassan, it looks like yes. Over here, he says, yeah, I have two causes to this damage. I have the street, this is like the city, and then I have this private individual that put his rock there. So I can't get money from the city street. That's just the city street, right? And also, he didn't even trip on anything. He tripped over his own feet. He fell against that rock. You think you're going to collect from him? You can't. It had to be that he tripped on the rock, and then he banged the rock. One point we're leaving out over here is if he trips on the rock and he bangs on the floor. The opposite case. We're leaving that out. That he would be exempt, Taisa says. I know. It seems like the opposite. But Rav holds that anything that gets damaged because of impact is pater. And according to Shmuel, I don't know. Taisa says that it would be pater. I'm not sure why. According to Rav, I understand because you didn't put the floor there. No. Person has to watch where he's going. That was only. No. A second. So I have to clarify something. No, we're confusing two things. The Gemara discussed that a person has to watch where he's going. The Gemara said that. That was regarding if a person breaks something of the other person. When a person gets hurt on something, the Gemara doesn't say he has to watch where he's going. You have to be more careful. You have to watch where you're going. More not to cause damage than to watch where you're going to be damaged.
Like if this person falls into the pit, he should have seen the pit, and the owner doesn't have to pay for the person.
No, but the owner. No, 1 second. 1 second. The owner of the pit doesn't have to pay if the person dies. If the person gets hurt, he has to pay. Yeah. Yeah. That's why you don't take that logic to don't limit it to that logic. You're limiting that sharv layadam to the logic of that the person should have seen where he's going. It really doesn't have to do with that. It has to do with if he dies, he doesn't.
The person dies to say after the
No. This was like a passive type of damage. It wasn't by mistake. It would have to be an active type of damage. He was, chopping his tree down in the axe.
Seems pretty. I mean, if he's liable if he hurts someone, but if he kills someone, it's like as if nothing happened.
Right. Yeah.
So make sure you kill. Make sure it's 10 apart from the teeth.
Okay. Avoniska. Okay, that was the first opinion. Nikadamri. There's another opinion here that says, don't say only if he trips on the stone and he bangs against the stone, he's going to be chayiv. But if he trips on the ground and he bangs against the stone, he'll be exempt. Even if he trips on the ground and he bangs against the stone, he'll also be chayiv. Come on, and who does that follow? Reb Nassan. So there are two versions if Rabbi Elazar is passing like Reb Nassan or not. Reb Nassan just means that you can make the collection from the other side that you can actually collect from. If there's two partners in this damage. Rabbi Yehuda says that if he intended, he's going to be chayiv. We learned this in the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that if someone's drug breaks in Rosh Hashanah, someone slips in the water, it gets damaged by the shards. He said chayiv. That's the first opinion. The first opinion of a Mishnah, we're going to call him Reb Meir. Stam Mishnah is Reb Meir. We'll say that's an anonymous opinion of the Mishnah. Anonymous Mishnayos is Reb Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says that it depends. If he's miskaven, if he intends, then he's chayiv. If he's not miskaven, then he's going to be patur. We don't know what he's talking about, miskaven. We just know that there's a guy that got hurt because someone didn't pick up his broken Snapple bottle. Are they still glass? Snapple bottles are the glass or the plastic? That would be the classic thing. Now it's the kombucha bottles or the glass bottles. They crack, you know. You don't put them in the garbage or recycling, whatever. So Rabbi Yehuda says it depends if he's miskaven. What is he talking about? Hechidami miskaven. What are you talking about, miskaven? Intent for what? So Amar Rabba, but miskaven le read l'matik miksefa. What was happening over here? It wasn't a little bottle. It was a drug, probably clay, and he was taking it off his shoulder. And as he's taking it down, he slipped. What was his intention? His intention was to take it off his shoulder. He doesn't say his intention was to smash it. His intention was to take it off his shoulder. Then he's going to be chayiv. When is he going to be patur? If it was such an accident that he wasn't even doing anything and it just fell. It wasn't even, usually when you're doing something, you're taking it off your shoulder, you have to be a little bit more careful. So here we're making him responsible, according to Rabbi Yehuda, when he was taking it off his shoulder, then you should have been more careful not to slip. So Rabbi Yehuda says you're going to be chayiv, but he says you're going to be exempt if it was a bigger accident than that, when it fell, even when you weren't adjusting anything. Amalei Abaya, so Abaya is a student of Rabba. He says to Rabba, Michlal, according to your view, the Mechayev Reb Meir afilu nifshra. Reb Meir says chayiv. Where Rabbi Yehuda says pater, Reb Meir says chayiv, because we know there's a machlekes. The first opinion says chayiv. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. Sometimes you chayiv. That means that Reb Meir is more strict. So if Rabbi Yehuda is strict, Reb Meir's got to be stricter. If Rabbi Yehuda is strict, that you're chayiv even when you're intending just to take it off your shoulder, you weren't intending to break it, and it was really like a ninus, you tripped or whatever, it just slipped. So Reb Meir must say you're chayiv even if you were holding it on your shoulder and the thing just melted and it disintegrated and just fell on the floor, just like the material just came apart. Then Reb Meir would say chayiv. Amalayin. Rabba says, yeah, you're right. Mechayiv Reb Meir feel wasn't be other. Reb Meir would say chayiv. You remember those the Canella Slanger wine bottles? They had this like little thing on the top. Remember those big bottles of no, it had like a little loop handle that represented a handle in the olden days. So it's holding that. Anyway, you're holding the handle on those jugs. So you're holding the handle and you're standing at, and the handles are still in your hand, and the jug is down. You have no way of protecting from that. That's a real inus. But what do you want me to do? I was holding it by the handle, and it fell. I can't. I don't have like 3 hands. I'm not holding it from the bottom also. So that's the pshat in Levi. When Levi was born, it says "Apam you love it, Ishi" or something, right? Because she has 2 children already, Reuven and Shimon. She doesn't have a 3rd hand, so 3rd hand, my husband's gonna have to walk with me. 3rd hand to hold Levi, 3rd child. So he says in B'chayiv Reb Meir, if he lost be other, Reb Meir would say chayiv. So Abaya says 1 second, Amai Anasu. That's an accident. Vainas Rachman Apache. Everyone knows that excuse when they went to yeshiva. That's the classic. I was an inus. Why come you didn't come? I was an inus. My alarm clock didn't ring. Something happened. Battery died. Got pulled out of the plug. Inus Rachman Apache. The Eibishter says you're exempt if you're an inus. It's on what was it? Shalom. On unpreventable circumstances. The ksiv, as it says in the pasuk, where do we learn inus Rachman Apache, that unpreventable circumstances you're exempt? Person's exempt. This is talking about by a story of rape where a man grabs a girl and there's no one to hear her screaming. So the punishment for the man is there. The punishment for the girl is not. Why? Because she's an inus. She had no protection. She had no no one to help her. Maybe we could say inus rachman apatre would be for a death penalty. See, here's an interesting logic. This is the way the Achreinim explain this. Come on, could say like this: that if the punishment is restitution, then maybe even if it's an accident, I understand it's an accident, but you still should make up the loss. I'm not saying you're guilty. I'm just saying that pay for it. I'm not saying it's your fault that you were, but nevertheless, the fact is it's a damage he lost, and you should, should rectify that. But when it comes to the death penalty, so the guy doesn't gain anything from killing someone. It's not, death penalty is not a restitution. It's not making up a loss of someone. I could say, Einus Rachmana Patre, when there's a person exempt because of an Einus, maybe that's only when it comes to a death penalty. We don't make him guilty on the death penalty. But Avalini Nazakin, when it comes to damages, Chayav, you should have to pay. It's a good logic. Even though it's not your fault, but it doesn't mean that you don't have to pay. You're not a bad person. It's just broke, and it was in your, in your hands, and it's collapsed or whatever. Pay for the damages. The Gemara says you can't say that because, Tanya, we have a brisa. In this brisa, we're going to see that Reb Meir clearly says that an einus is pater, even for damages. We'll see it. You have to wait till the end of the brisa, but we'll see it. It says we have the brisa goes like this. It's very similar to our Mishnah. Nishbara kadei v'lei salkai. His jug broke, and he didn't pick it up. Exactly like our Mishnah. Nafal gamale v'lei amidei. His camel fell down and he didn't stand it up. The Meir mechayev bezekim. Damage happened. The Meir says chayev. The Chacham say patim medini adam mechayev medini shemayim. The Chacham say no, he's exempt. You have to figure out why the Chacham say that he's exempt. But he obviously had enough time to pick up, to clean it up, but he delayed, and in that interim, damage happened. Meidim Chachamim l'Reb Meir. The Chacham would agree to Reb Meir that he's going to be chayav. Babneskina masay shenicham breish gag v'nafel broch mitzuya v'yiziku shu chayav. The Chacham would agree that this would be chayav if you put something on your porch, on your balcony, on your roof, or something. Then an ordinary wind blows it off and causes damage, that the person would be chayav. That he should have taken into account. However, the Meir would agree to the Rabbanan that he's going to be pater if the Malakan Kana Malagagam and Nagvam, he brings up his jugs to the roof. They would dry in the sun, and he put them up there. And a hurricane wind, not ordinary wind, and that came and knocked it off. That'd be exempt. We see the Reb Meir holds that you're pater, but by an einus, Reb Meir holds that you're pater. You wanted to say that maybe Reb Meir says that you should be chayav for damages, even if it's an einus. When are you exempt from einus? That's for death penalties. But restitution, you should have to pay up, even though it's not your fault. But nevertheless, so no, Reb Meir says you're pater. So now our question is, what was Rabbi Yehuda saying? Miskaven meant what? That you were taking it off your shoulder, which was almost an einus, right? And then Reb Meir would say, even if it was a real einus, you should be chayav. How could he say that? Reb Meir says pater by an einus. Okay, so Elamar Abaya, rather Abaya says, Betarti pligi. There's two machlekes going on here. You had trouble with one. Let's throw another one in, and somehow that's going to help us. There's actually two machlekes going on. Pligi b'shas nefila, pligi lach nefila. They're arguing at the time of falling, and also arguing after it fell. At the time of falling means they're discussing now. If someone trips, is that considered a very, very general? If someone trips, not because the floor was wet, someone just trips. Is that considered negligent or not? Trips over his own feet. Or is that considered an accident?
Depends if he has a lawyer.
Right. Well, the lawyer would come and pick a side over here and argue the side. But there's a machlekes here between Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda. They argue at the time of falling, biniskal pesheya. is someone that stumbles, is he considered negligent?
Matters if he had a shoelace.
Yeah, yeah. So if his shoelaces are untied, that's a very good point. Shoelaces are untied, that's considered negligent. Talking about his shoelaces are tied, and just while he's walking, sometimes like he loses his footing, and he fell. So Marsavar Meir holds Niskal Pisheya, that Niskal is Pisheya, that stumbling is considered negligent. And we're not talking about someone tripped over something that someone had left on the floor. That's not negligent. That's something else on the floor. But here he's just tripping over nothing. Is that considered negligent? Should he have walked slower, walked more careful? Marsavar Niskal Pisheya, Rabbi Yudol's Niskal is not Pisheya. Okay. Now what that's talking about is if as he's falling, he's causing damage.
What'd you say about the shoelace?
That would definitely be negligent.
So what if he's not old enough to tie the shoelaces and the parents always tie the shoelaces? The parents.
But the shoe company makes it difficult shoelaces. Product liability.
It's not just a crazy question, considering that last few pages, we always went one step
Right,
off.
right. You heard Dr. Stein's question? If the child isn't old enough to tie his own shoes, so the parent's going to be responsible because they didn't tie his shoes. But
Like if
we
he
said,
answer, if he's a child, the parents are responsible.
no, parents actually are not responsible for children's damages.
No.
So, yeah,
So if he's playing
I think I
baseball,
got away
busts
with
the
all of it.
window of the neighbor.
they're not
So he plays
responsible.
baseball anymore, sir.
They're not
That's just a
responsible.
loss, right? We spoke about that before.
Come here, I want you to do something. See that guy over there?
We one time went to this guy's house, because we went away to yeshiva. My father probably told you these stories. We went away to yeshiva, went to this guy's house, and we were playing baseball outside, and the window broke. Anyway, it was the son of the owner of the house. Anyway, he's like, "My father's gonna kill me. Please, I beg you, say that it's you. Say that it's you." My father's gonna... Anyway, we said that it was us, but it was like the relationship was very awkward, very strange. He was afraid of it. He said, "Don't worry, I'm telling you, my father's not going to hit you, but he's going to hit me." So, okay. So anyway, that's the story.
Has on video, you cannot make this up. The guy from Walmart comes out of the car and so from the nest, whatever, and you see him carrying the bags of eggs. He had ordered, been waiting for a few days to get the eggs, and the guy comes with the eggs, and right in front of the door, he starts tripping it, full of them right in front of his door, broke the entire bag
Oh my gosh.
on video.
Yeah.
So is he chayav or
Think of all
not?
those chickens that were never born.
Okay. So the first machlokes is niskal pesheya. That's a machlokes. How to view that? It's going to come up in court. We're going to have to see if damage that happens as he's falling. Then we have another machlokes. Other machlokes is pligilachin if he lived the mafkin zakav. If after it falls down and he had an opportunity to clean it up, but he decides not to clean it up, he just says, "I'm making it ownerless." So, Marsavar Mafkin Zakav Chayev. One says if you make it ownerless, you're still Chayev. Marsavar Pata. Other one says that you're exempt from it, which is a little surprising that a person should be exempt when he has his things on the floor. Shouldn't that be a regular bar? This would follow the opinion that says, forget who it is, Rabbi Shmuel or Rabbi Akiva, but this would follow the opinion that when is a bar chayiv only if you dug a bar in your property and then you make your property ownerless, but you keep the bar. You have to still own it. Here, you don't own it. If you're mafkir your property as well, you'd be exempt. If you mafkir everything, then you would be exempt. That would be following this opinion. Rabbi Yehuda would follow that opinion. Okay, the Gemara says, well, how do you come up with this? That there's two machlaikas in there. Mimai. How do you come up with this machlaikas? Because it says twice. It says two things. It's because the Mishnah gave us two examples of what's going on over here. So that tells me that there's two cases. It says, those two examples are exactly the same. Someone gets slips in the water or gets hurt by the shards. It must be that it's telling me two different dinim. Someone slipped in the water as it was falling before there was a chance to pick it up. You see, if someone slips in the water before there's a chance to pick up the water, to clean it up, to mop it up, then I have to look at the negligence of the person that slipped. How did the water end up on the floor? If it slips in the water after there was an opportunity to pick it up, then I have to look at the negligence of the person that was supposed to pick it up. There's two different things that I have to judge. The falling is at the time of falling. Was he negligent? The fact that he fell. The fact that there's every day in the yeshiva there's a cup of soup on the floor, because the way they set it up is that you have to go up to the counter to take, and as the guy's walking back, someone knocks into him and it spills on the floor. So, then the guy runs to get paper towels to clean it up. So there's right then in that moment when he didn't have an opportunity to clean it up if someone gets damaged, and then there's after he had an opportunity to clean it up and he didn't clean it up. That's a different story. He should have cleaned it up, which that would be more of a reason to say that he should be chayav. The first one is I didn't see you. Okay, so it says two things. First one is that's talking about at the time of falling. And then the shalaka b'charsis, the shards are there. That's talking about lachar nefila. After he fell, there's another responsibility to have to go pick it up, and he didn't pick it up. So there's a machlekes if the guy says, "Well, I didn't want the pieces, so why should I pick it up?" Since the Mishnah is talking about two cases, Brisa nami betarti, it seems logical that the Brisa that had the same machlekes, Reb Meir and the Chachamim, would be same machlekes as Reb Meir and Rabbi Yehuda of the Mishnah. So in the Mishnah we had two cases, slipped on the water or hurt by the shards. The Brisa, we also have two cases, the slipped in the water, right? The jug broke, and then he has a camel that fell down. He doesn't pick it up. That's probably also the exact same machlekes. Gemara says, 1 second, we're extending this to the Brisa. It doesn't fit perfectly. When it comes to the jug, I get it. There's a question. The guy was holding the jug. Was he negligent when he tripped? Was he responsible to pick up the pieces afterwards? But when it comes to the camel, I get it after it fell down. He should have picked it up. Should have gone to pick up the animal that tripped. Maybe the animal fell down and he decided, you know what, I don't want the animal. I'll leave it there. Those big birds that come and eat the animal, the birds will eat up the carcass. I'm not cleaning it up. The vultures. Ella b'shas nefila. But what are you talking about? At the time of falling, how do you have a discussion between Reb Meir and the Chachamim if an animal is negligent while it's walking, if it should have walked more carefully? When it comes to a person, you can say the guy should have been more careful when he's walking. He should have walked more stable. If he can't walk so fast, so walk slower. But by a camel, there's no such thing as that the animal should have. There's no distractions by the animal. The animal does exactly what it knows to do. You can't say you should have by the animal. We're not talking about the animal made a mistake, the animal tripped, and blaming the animal. We're blaming the owner that he took it by the overflow of the river. What's the case? If there's another road, so Pesheahu, then he's totally negligent. If there is no other road, that's the only way to go, and the river overflowed. So then it's an accident. That's the only way to go. He was doing his best. Gemara comes up with a way to explain this, is that the owner tripped. And owners trip. Yeah, people trip. And then we have a discussion. Is the owner negligent when he trips? However, when he tripped, the camel tripped over him. I hope he's okay. But the camel's not. Camel's not okay. So the camel is there on the floor. But how could we say that there's a machlokes if the camel falling is considered negligent or not? That's because the camel tripped over the owner, and there's really a discussion about the owner. But if the owner tripped, if that was negligent, yeah.
What if the owner overburdened the camel or animal so much that it couldn't really walk in a normal pattern, and therefore the owner was really responsible?
Right. It's a good question.
He was going for the
trip. Right. That would probably go under the Pesheya part. You loaded up too much. Yeah. Okay. Now the Gemara Mafkin is of my Meskabenika. What we're discussing over here. The person falls and the count, yeah, the same thing. If the yeah, the Gemara is asking that in the words of Rabbi Yehuda, we said the miskaven chayev. If he intends, he's chayev. That would mean that if he trips, that's not considered intending. Ein miskaven, if he trips, he's pater. Niskal, he trips, he's pater. That's what it means. What does it mean if after lachan nefila? Because Rabbi Yehuda means two. When he says that phrase miskaven chayev, ein miskaven pater, he means two things. He means when he fell, like before there was an opportunity to pick it up. He says tripping is considered ein miskaven. That's what he means. But what does he mean after it fell if he intends? So the Gemara explains that's the easy one. Rabbi Yosef miskaven liskas b'charsei. If he intends to keep the pieces, charseha, b'charseha, in its shards. Rabbi Lazar Aimer. Okay. Rashi miskaven liskas b'charsei. If he intends to keep it, if he intends to keep the shards, then he's going to be chayav. But Rabbi Yehuda would hold that if he decides to make it ownerless, like the glass that's on the side of the accident, that's left there, he would be exempt from it. Rabbi Lazar Amar b'shas nefila machlekes. Rabbi Lazar says what it seems right now is that he's arguing with Abaya. Abaya says the machlekes is about two things because there were two cases there. Rabbi Lazar comes along and says machlekes is about one thing. It's only about the time of falling. Avalach and nefila mai. But what about after it fell? What he's going to hold over there? What's going to be the din? What would Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda hold about that? Probably divrat kol pater. Everyone would say that you don't have to clean up the pieces that you don't want to keep. The Gemara says Vikar Rabbi Meir de Mechayev. How could you say that? We know Rabbi Meir says Chayev in the Brisa. It says Nafal Gemalev Le'amidai Rabbi Meir Mechayev Bezeg. The Brisa I know is talking about La'achar Nefila. You know why? Because it says V'lo Yhamidai. The Brisa is talking about after it fell down. And you had an opportunity to pick it up, because the Brisa says, and you didn't pick it up. Obviously, that was the case. So how could you tell me that Reb Meir would say pater? Elamai divrei kol chayiv. It must be that it's chayiv. The Gemara says everyone holds chayiv. 1 second, but the Chum say that he's exempt, and we're talking about lachan because it says v'lei amida. You didn't pick it up. Chum say pater. Elamai b'shas nefila. So we're stuck over here. What does it mean that Rabbi Lazar says the machlekes at the time of falling? Af b'shas nefila. Also at the time of falling, Kamashman Kedabaya, Rabbi Lazar and Abaya are saying exactly the same thing. It's machlekes on both, not both. Okay, now Rabbi Yechanan says exactly the opposite of Rabbi Lazar, and we're going to go through the same thing, just slightly more complex. We'll come out with a little bit of a different answer. Rabbi Yechanan says lachan nefila machlekes. The machlekes between Rabbi and the Chacham is only lachan nefila, but that fits perfectly with the Brisa because it says the camel fell and he didn't pick it up. Sounds like his problem was he didn't pick it up, not because he tripped when he was falling. His problem was he didn't pick it up. That's the machlekes. And the machlekes is if someone decides not to keep the carcass or the shards or whatever is there, is he responsible for the damages? Aval b'shas nefila. What would happen at the time of falling? Before he has an opportunity to pick it up anyway, do we say that that's considered an accident, or do we say that that's considered negligent if he stumbles, right? And there's someone gets hurt by that. What would be the din? Divra kol pater. In other words, the difference between b'shas nefila at the time of stumbling and the difference in lachan nefila is the question is there negligence? If the difference would be if someone got hurt before you had an opportunity to clean it up, then I have to look at a different question. Is there negligence while he was walking that he stumbled? If it's during that time, I don't have to look at does he want to keep the shards, not want to keep the shards. That's not my discussion. My discussion is when he stumbled, was that considered negligent? So that's another. Now we're asking. I know what Rabbi Yechanan says is a machlekes when he was supposed to clean it up, but he didn't. What about when he stumbled? Then was that considered negligence if someone got hurt in that interim? What would he say? Divrei kol pater. Probably says everyone says that that's considered an accident. It says v'amida Kamma Rabbi Yechanan lekaman. But Rabbi Yochanan says later on, page later, this is the same on Sunday. It says two potters are walking. Harry Potter, two guys that make pots, right? They're walking one after another. The first one stumbles, and the second guy stumbles over the first one. So it says the first one is responsible to pay for the damages for the second one. Okay, that's what it says. Now Rabbi Yochanan comes along on that Mishnah and says, don't say that Mishnah is Reb Meir. That Mishnah is only Reb Meir, who holds that the reason why he has to pay is because he stumbled, and stumbling is considered pesheya. But even according to the Rabbanan, that say stumbling is not a pesheya, he's still chayav over here because he should have stood up and he didn't stand up. So Rabbi Yochanan learns that Mishnah that he had an opportunity to stand up and he didn't stand up, and that Mishnah would follow both Reb Meir and Chum. We said 1 second. Back to us. What does Reb Meir hold by stumbling? You wanted to say pater? Can't be. Rabbi Yochanan says, the fact that Rabbi Yochanan explains that Mishnah that it's not only Reb Meir that says chayav, but it's even the Rabbanan. Obviously, Reb Meir holds that niskal is chayav. Elamai de rekel chayav, so probably everyone holds chayav. The Gemara says you can't say that either. Rabbi Yochanan said, don't say it's Reb Meir, but say it's also the Rabbana, even though the Rabbanan say pater. Over here they would say chayav. So you can't say that there's no machlekes by niskal, at the time of falling. It's clearly a machlekes given according to Rabbi Yochanan. Elahakamash Milan, what it means to say is the mafkir nezakav dahacha hu de pachi rabbanan. Now we're getting into a little bit, the logic is becoming a little bit clearer in this Gemara. If someone takes his Snapple bottle, kombucha bottle, he throws it on the floor, and then he doesn't clean it up because he says, I don't need deliberately. Deliberately. He says, I'm not cleaning it up because I don't want the pieces. It's not mine, it's hefker. So then we would say chayav. Question is, if someone trips and he fell, and the Snapple bottle broke, and then he doesn't clean it up, so then that could be different. Mafkin izakav dahacha hu de pachi rabbanan. The rabbanan over here say that because the whole way that it got on the floor was an accident, I didn't intend for that to happen. So maybe over there he can get out of it by saying I don't want the pieces either. Aval mafkin izakav dalma, but if he would throw it on the floor, then mechayve, then even the rabbanan would say chayiv. So what Rabbi Yochanan meant was not la'achar nefila machlekes. The machlekes is after it fell, but not b'shas nefila, but not at the time of fall. No, what Rabbi Yochanan meant to say is la'achar nefila machlekes. After it fell is the machlekes, but not after it was thrown on the floor is the machlekes. So the emphasis here is not on the la'achar. The emphasis is on the la'achar nefila. After it fell, there's a machlekes by mafkin nezakav, but there's no machlekes of mafkin nezakav if it was thrown on the floor. Okay, mafkin nezakav if you make the shards on the list. Okay, if we have to leave it at Itmar, so there's a whole sugya that takes us to the next page. Oh wow. Okay.
Sunday morning, 6
Sunday